Hello everyone here, welcome back to another GCSE AQA History video with the Germany course. Today we're doing political unrest in Weimar Germany, lots to cover with 5-minute GCSE. Let's get right into it. Now let's recap for a second. Although SDP's Ebert was in power by early 1919, his election did not stop the political chaos that ravaged Germany between 1919 and 1923. The far right, such as the NSDAP supporters, and the far left, such as the communists, destabilized the nation by trying to seize power. And if you don't know who they are, well, you should watch my previous video on the basics of German politics. Revolts, murders, and uprisings meant that it was dangerous to be a politician. During this period, there were numerous threats to democracy, and we'll go over these main threats in this video. Threat number 1, the 1919 Spartacist Revolt. In January 1919, radical communist Spartacists, led by the founders of the Marxist Spartacist League, Karl Liebknecht and Rosa Luxemburg — Marxist is, by the way, you can use it interchangeably with communist — tried to overthrow the Berlin government. 100,000 workers attended this demonstration because, as you know, groups like the communists had working class support. They seized telegraph offices and other communication buildings. In response, the government deployed the right-wing Freikorps, a group of ex-soldiers who hated communism, to attack them. Now, although this stopped the unrest, 100 workers, along with Luxemburg and Liebknecht, were killed. Other communist rebellions elsewhere still took place, and this crackdown made much of the working class resent the SDP. So this was definitely a mixed victory. Threat 2, the Kapp Putsch in 1920. With many angry at the Treaty of Versailles, and if you don't know what that is, we will cover the Treaty of Versailles in the next video. This is one of the key parts of the course that is probably relevant right until the end of it, so we will definitely cover it. But with many angry at it, it was no surprise that a rebellion led by a right-wing politician, Dr. Wolfgang Kapp, began in March 1920. Gathering 5,000 Freikorps, Kapp was determined to storm Berlin and seize power. Now, the army refused to fire on the force of ex-soldiers, and especially considering they were just used by the government to shut down the Spartacists. So Ebert fled to Dresden, unable to stop Kapp. However, he managed to convince Berlin's labor unions and civil servants to encourage widespread resistance in the form of a strike in an attempt to stop him in Berlin. And this actually ended up working. Within 4 days, around 100 hours to be exact, the city was brought to a standstill, and Kapp had no choice but to flee, allowing Ebert to come back. So, yet another victory for the SDP leader. Next, soon after, you had the Red Ruhr Rising, or the Red Rising in the Ruhr, whichever way you want to call it, in 1920. After the Kapp Putsch failed, some socialist workers in the industrial Ruhr region of Germany actually stayed on strike, and they armed themselves, took over towns like Dortmund, and caused havoc in the area. And once again, the SDP sent the Freikorps in to attack them. This crushed the revolt in spring 1920, after over 1,000 workers were murdered. Threat number 4, the Munich Putsch of 1923, and this is where key person from our course comes in. It is, of course, Adolf Hitler, the leader of the NSDAP. In autumn 1923, he declared that he will stage a coup d'etat, which is when you seize power and replace the current government, during a speech at a Munich beer hall. His plan was to take up control of Munich, the South German Bavarian government, and then Berlin, inspired by fascist Benito Mussolini's March on Rome in 1922, although this was not supported by key politicians in Bavaria. Nevertheless, in November, Hitler, famous General Erich Ludendorff, as well as the Nazi paramilitary group Sturmabteilung, or as it is known as the SA, under Ernst Röhm, went on to attempt the coup. Fortunately, while the 3,000 Nazis were on their way to the Bavarian Defense Ministry, a group of armed police confronted the rebels. A subsequent clash stopped the radicals, killed 60 Nazis, and even led to the arrest of Hitler himself. However, the Nazi leader's imprisonment helped him in some ways. Hitler used this 24-day court trial to make compelling speeches against the Weimar government, which earned him new supporters. This failure forced him to rethink his tactics, and his stay at Landsberg prison gave him time to write the 1925 political manifesto, Mein Kampf. So, while it was a victory for democracy, it was certainly a short-term one, rather than a long-term one. Threat 5, assassinations. And this really happened throughout the whole period. This was happening all the time. 356 assassinations took place, and they were mostly carried out by far-right extremists who were angry at those responsible for the Versailles Treaty. For example, in summer 1920, after nationalists like Wilhelm Henning publicly wrote that Walter Rathenau's aim was to destroy so-called German honor, the foreign minister was shot dead with a submachine gun. Matthias Erzberger, who signed the 1918 armistice, was also killed by a right-wing group. This highlighted how little control the Weimar government had over German society. Now, we haven't done this for a while, but let's practice a PEC, a practice exam question. This is a question 6 in the Germany paper. Which of the following was the most important threat to Weimar Republic in the years 1918 to 1923? Left-wing risings or right-wing plots? Explain your answer with reference to both bullet points using your contextual knowledge. It is a 12-mark question. Now, what you do here is quite simple. You do 2 PE paragraphs, one for the first point, one for the second point. So here it would be left-wing risings, and you use that own knowledge to explain how your contextual knowledge shows that left-wing risings were important and a threat to democracy, and how right-wing risings threaten democracy. And then you do a conclusion. And the conclusion is basically where you say, while this is a fair point, this is a stronger point. I think left-wing risings were more important, or I think right-wing plots were actually more important. You choose. There is no wrong answer. As you have seen, there's plenty of evidence on both sides. 356 assassinations, lots and lots of chaos, havoc, and unrest. You spend 20 minutes to write those 3 paragraphs in the exam. And as the last thing, here is a memorization tip for you. That is a lot of own knowledge, so something to help you remember is SPARK. We've got the Spartacist Revolt, the Putsch of Munich, Assassinations, Red Ruhr Rising, and the Kapp Putsch. There you go. It's a nice little acronym for you. Now, I hope that helps. Thank you for watching the video. Leave a like and have a nice day.